What's up, Sushi Squad? We back in more Trove, and here we are on the test server once again. For those of you that have already ended up watching my video highlighting all of the new modified class abilities, this isn't for you because you already know what all of the abilities are. No, this is actually a video to specifically address the fact that the Gunslinger's modified ability makes it god tier. Like, Gunslinger was always a powerhouse in Trove, and frankly speaking was one of the strongest classes in the game. And basically the developers over the years have used the Gunslinger as the standard point. All of the other classes were way below it, and they've slowly over time reworked them, or in this case given them modified abilities to kind of bring them in line with the Gunslinger, right? Which I feel is good. I feel that they've actually been doing that steadily with a lot of the classes. Even more recently, we actually had Chloromancer's rework become more powerful than the Gunslinger, which was very surprising. But the new modified ability that's coming for the Gunslinger might just change all of that. Not to say 100% in certainty that this is going to end up making the Gunslinger the absolute best character in the game again, but it kind of does, because Gunslinger's already got an insanely good ult. The ultimate ability of the Gunslinger just, I mean, it makes it so that you shoot your charged shots, and basically if you potion spam and then you use the ability again, well, then you can end up doing insane amounts of damage. The other thing too that I would argue is Gunslinger is a lot simpler and easier to use than some of the more complex characters where, say, Chloromancer does a lot of damage, but you have to constantly have all of your flowers out and try to be as efficient as possible in order to end up doing that. I mean, granted, Chloromancer just has mega damage anyways. Not to say other characters in the game aren't strong either, you know, like Ice Sage, Tomb Raider, so on and so forth. But today, I'm specifically talking about the Gunslinger because the class ability makes it so that when using your ultimate ability, you gain Berserk, which increases damage and attack speed. And it greatly reduces your movement speed. It's not like I'm moving around when using this ability anyways, but that is insane. It absolutely blew my mind when I ended up seeing it, because a lot of you guys were talking about, oh, check out the Gunslinger ability. And then, you know, when we ended up doing it on stream, my reaction was pretty normal, I think, where I was absolutely shocked because, you know, you have Gunslinger here, the other characters slowly being brought up to Gunslinger, and then we just got an ability that just went whoop once again. So now the majority of characters can't keep up. And the problem isn't so much that the Gunslinger is getting a new ability. I mean, I'm all for it, and I think that it's really cool. You know, when we look at something like the Neon Ninja and its modified abilities, and even the more recent rework to the character that is technically live, where when you end up doing your backflip, you end up gaining shurikens. The modified abilities, which we don't have them right now, make it so that you could either do slow fall by using your ultimate ability, or you could end up getting all 3 shurikens with 1 backflip. Now, a lot of this is subject to change, okay, because it's on the test server and with modified abilities and stuff. But the thing is that I wasn't super bothered by the change that they ended up making to the Neon Ninja, because I feel like in a lot of ways it just kind of made the character more whole. It made it more Neon Ninja than it ever, more leg than you could ever be, you know, like it just made it so that Neon Ninja's weakest link, which was that you had to build up shurikens in order to fight enemies, and I'm not just talking in terms of speed farming and end game with the Neon Ninja, I'm talking about just the Neon Ninja as a whole now has the ability to gain shurikens while right clicking, which is great in terms of the entire spectrum of the game, because obviously it makes Neon Ninja one of the most efficient speed farming characters in the game. No question. Neon Ninja already was one of the fastest, but its weak link was that it had to build up shurikens on enemies, and if there was no enemies around, well, can't build up shurikens. So they ended up making this modified change, and I'll get back to the Gunslinger. They ended up making this change, and it was great for a little while. They ended up changing Delve's bosses specifically so that they can no longer end up being ensnared by your shuriken. So it kind of made Neon Ninja, like they made Neon Ninja good in Delves, and then they ended up changing that, and now Delves is just, you still don't use Neon Ninja in there, like why would you? But it did make Neon Ninja a lot more useful just in terms of, you know, how it works as a character, on top of the fact that now obviously you can have all 3 shurikens by the time you get to a dungeon, which means you shoot your ultimate ability, you know, your super shuriken, and it destroys the boss, and you are now the speediest character in the absolute game because you actually have your maximum damage pretty much when you get to the dungeon. However, Gunslinger, on the other hand, I feel its weakness is its movement capabilities is actually what's kind of slacking. Damage was never a problem on the Gunslinger, and that's where I have a problem. Because now we've got this modified ability that somehow just is like, hey, you know what? Screw all the balancing. Let's just make the Gunslinger the strongest again. And on top of that, I wouldn't have as much of a problem with this if I thought that they could actually give as good abilities as this to the other characters in the game. Because this ability literally is just more damage. That's the thing that's so crazy about it. And so far, the other modified abilities end up being hit or miss, frankly speaking. We've talked about this when we ended up having the first set of modified abilities. We're talking about it now with the next set of modified abilities because, you know, things like it's like, why don't we have a good modified ability that makes the Shadow Hunter's auto attacks, you know, his stream of damage, make that do more damage? Then at least Shadow Hunter gets brought up a little closer to the Gunslinger, albeit not much, you know, and ends up actually being something that everyone can appreciate because Shadowhunter is a character where everyone just generally enjoys it. And I'm not just saying it because Shadowhunter is one of my favorite characters and it desperately needs a rework, but I feel like these modified abilities as a whole could end up being a really cheap, easy band-aid fix for a lot of the classes in the game rather than a full rework, because the problem with a full rework of a character is how long it takes. Again, bringing to the point of the Gunslinger, where we're going to get this modified ability which just makes the Gunslinger stronger, which wouldn't be bad if all of the other characters were kind of at that same precipice, meaning that Gunslinger gets way stronger because of this modified ability, and then we're waiting months, years before we end up seeing all the other characters slowly get brought up to par again. So I mean, the cat's out of the bag. They already kind of showed us this ability, and I think everyone would be pretty pissed off if they ended up just removing this ability from the game before these modified abilities go live. But I did want to end up opening up a discussion about this just because it is very concerning, and in a lot of ways when they ended up doing this made me feel like the devs were completely out of touch with what was going on in terms of the class balancing, which is odd because they've actually been doing a stellar point thus far, and I would argue that the Lunar Lancer rework is absolutely amazing in terms of the fun, and that's basically what, you know, this is first and foremost, is a fun video game. So as far as my feedback is concerned, I mean, you know, if they had this ability, who cares? Okay, awesome. I'm not going to main Gunslinger just because he becomes the strongest character in the game, because frankly speaking, I don't find the Gunslinger to be particularly fun, just because you have to, you know, spam pots in order to use your ult a lot more often, and in general, your movement speed is going to be a lot lower. And the funny thing is that this modified ability makes it so your movement speed is even slower when you're using your ult, and so it just kind of removes the Gunslinger from the fact of speed farming. Like I feel like if there's any modified abilities that we need to get for the Gunslinger, it is not damage, it is some type of movement, you know. But I mean, that's my 2 cents towards it. Sound off in the comments whether you disagree with me or you agree, or you have a whole other idea entirely. This isn't meant to be a video to knock Gunslinger and say, you know, to Gunslinger mains, curse you. It's most of all a concern, like I said, first and foremost, with the balancing of the game, because this is a very quick, easy band-aid fix to end up making the Gunslinger one of, if not the best hitting character in the entire game, but so much more a cut above the rest. And I mean, maybe that's their goal. Maybe that's what the devs wanted to do, was maybe they're like, okay, everyone's complaining that Gunslinger's not as strong as Chloromancer now. I don't know, just because, you know, a lot of the end game is kind of all centered around Gunslinger. I don't know. I don't even know what the point of this video is. Most of all, I just wanted to focus on the ability and the fact that, like, look at this. Look at this. It lasts just as long as your normal ult. It just ends up doing like twice the damage or something ridiculous because not only of the attack speed, you end up getting so many more hits off than you would with your normal ult, but it also has, let me reiterate, it has increased damage and attack speed. Yeah. So, God, pardon me. Anyways, I don't need this video to be longer than it needs to. It was definitely a more ranty video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I thought long and hard about making this video or not, and I thought, yeah, you know what? Let's talk about it, because this is all on the test server right now, so now is the time when we need to make our voices heard about these types of things. Or maybe I'm crazy, and maybe all of you think that this is a wonderful addition, in which case I will shut up about it. But I'm looking forward to seeing your guys' comments and stuff. Either way, have yourselves a wonderful day.